Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 103B.
I'm Cam, this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Haftarah discussion of this week's Torah portion, and it's found in 1 Kings 18:46 through 19:21, and it picks up where Ketisa left off.
Okay.
And I think Ketisa is 87B, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a while, but that's the one where I go over the full history. So if you want to hear the full history of how we got to this place, otherwise I'm just going to kind of review Ketisa.
Yeah. So you can go back and look at the Torah portion that we did back then.
Right, if you need it. But I think you'll all remember. I think you'll all remember. This is about Elijah.
Okay.
Ketisa was about Elijah on Mount Carmel.
Okay.
With the 400 prophets of Baal, and choose you this day whom you're going to serve, and then he puts he does end up putting the all of the prophets to death.
Yes.
Because all the people fell down and said Yahweh is the true God. So remember, I think it was in your Torah portion maybe a week or two ago, we talked about that, how the prophet of Baal got to go first because it's the one that they chose. But once the people recognized, no, Yahweh is the true God, then the prophets of Baal had to go.
Right.
Because the land can't support Yahweh and the prophets of Baal.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't have a blessing and the curse flowing in God's land.
You have to choose.
But he is a gentleman, and if that's what you're choosing, then he'll let you choose that. You just have to suffer the consequences.
Right.
So that leads me to this.
Okay.
So Elijah was a prophet during the time of King Ahab.
Mm-hmm.
Ahab was married to Jezebel. Remember, she was the prophetess from Tyre. She's the one that brought in all the Baal worship. She wanted to put all of the prophets of Yahweh to death, while simultaneously giving the prophets of Baal the money and the food and the recognition and the place and the priesthood, basically. Right. Okay, so Elijah rises up, and to show the people, I love this because it reminds me so much of Egypt, and this entire Torah portion, you're going to see the patterns of Elijah and Moses. Okay, so he uses Elijah to pronounce a curse of a drought on the land because Baal was the god of rain and thunder.
Oh, well, hello.
So 3.5 years this went on, and then they were able to have the episode on Mount Carmel where, the Lord consumed his. Baal couldn't be conjured up no matter what they tried. Yes.
And really, it made it almost laughable to everyone, the suggestion of the Lord would bring this rain, because it hadn't been rain. So it's, and then there's the one little cloud. Yeah, it's just like, it makes it laughable how the Lord 3.5 years ago sets this up. So there's even a bigger bang when he comes to show himself.
Right. And when he does show himself, like I said, so Jezebel's not there. She's not present for this when the Lord shows up and reveals himself as being more powerful than Baal, but the king is. Ahab is there. And it's suggested that Ahab was among the people who said, no, Yahweh is the true God. It's not Baal, it's Yahweh. And the reason is because in 46, where we're starting, 1 Kings 18:46, it says, and the hand of Yahweh was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Israel. All right, so a lot of people think that he girded up his loins and he ran so fast that he beat Ahab. But that's not what this is suggesting. The Hebrew actually suggested that Ahab allowed Elijah to now be part of his entourage. He is now the king's prophet, so he is part of that procession that goes before the king. So he said, yes, I will go. And I'm sure he had all these thoughts of, this is how it's going to happen. This is how the Lord's going to reveal himself. This is how it's going to go down.
He's going to bring him back.
Yes. Ahab is going to turn, and he's going to tear down all the high places, and it's going to be great, and everyone's going to live great, and Jezebel's going to turn, and she's going to realize also that Yahweh's the true God, but that's not what happened.
I just simply had a flashback, and I can remember this really in the 80s. We would have, like, a movie star would come to the Lord and be like, oh, this is great. This person's going to be so on fire for God.
All of Hollywood's going to turn. Right.
And then half the time you find out that person, except for people like Kirk Cameron and a few who really did just totally sell out for the Lord. A lot of them would be like, oh, yeah, okay. And then poor things, they would get so bombarded by people, they didn't even have time to learn, and then they would just drop out.
Right, right.
This makes me think of this with that thought process you're bringing. This is it. Look how easy. Yeah.
Well, and that's Elijah. We can learn a lot from Elijah, because how many of us get a hold of Torah and we're so excited about it, and we're like, gosh, now I'm going to go tell these people about Torah. You tell them and they don't accept it.
Right.
And then we're just heartbroken, and we're like, I just don't understand. People who we thought for sure really love the Lord, either it's just not time for them to see it yet, or they're just not going to, and that's
not the place they're going to fit in that kingdom. It's just not the place.
So that's what we see here. So he runs ahead. They had rain, finally. Now that everyone has accepted that Yahweh is the true God, they had the rain. That was a testimony to Ahab, but when Ahab got back and told Jezebel, this is what she says. In 19:2, it says, Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, so let the mighty ones do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. So basically she says, by this time tomorrow, I will kill you just like you killed the prophets of Baal. So instead of trusting the Lord, like he should have, he starts to fear. He allows fear coming over him. And Cam and I were talking yesterday about the similarities of this, of how Jezebel could be likened to the church, because she's the one in charge here right now.
Yeah.
The king could be likened to Yeshua, of course, but not really. But, just for this argument's sake.
For the placement.
For the placement, right. So Jezebel is the one, and I find it interesting that in Revelation 3 or Revelation 2, it talks about the church of Thyatira. They tolerate the teaching of Jezebel. So we know that her teachings are in the church. We know that.
Right.
So we're not just making that up.
Right.
All right. Yeah, it's actually in Revelation 2. So we know that the teachings are there. But yet, when presented to this establishment, they reject it.
Yeah.
And Elijah he feels like he's the only one left, because he didn't realize that Obadiah, who was the steward of the king at the time, had hidden 100 prophets in caves, 50 and 50. We talked about that. We've talked about that before in one of the Torah portions. So he went
broke taking care of them.
Yes, he's been taking care of them. We see Elisha taking care of the wife later on. All right, so it says in 3, and he feared and rose up and ran for his life and went to Beersheba. So he went to the southern kingdom. He went to Judah.
He does a lot of running.
Okay, he does a lot of running.
Runner.
All right, to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree and prayed that he might die, and said, it is enough. Now, Yahweh, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. This really struck me. The pinnacle of his prophetic career just happened.
Right.
He just saw the Lord demonstrate in the most powerful way, but yet he feared Jezebel and ran for his life. It just amazes me. So anyway,
how often does that kind of stuff happen in our lives?
Yes.
I mean,
we
see him mightily here.
Yes.
Mightily here, and then the next thing is like, but will you do it here? I mean, it's just like you go back to Exodus 15, 16, 17. That's the whole thing there. I know you'll do this, but will you do this?
Yes. And I would suggest that at this time, the probably King Jehoram, or however you want to say it, was on the rise, and he was a very wicked king in Judah. So I would imagine the reason he went out into the wilderness, I mean, where's he going to go?
Right.
They're wicked in the northern now, they're wicked in the southern. Obviously the king didn't stick up for him, or I would imagine he would have stayed around. But obviously Jezebel was still in charge.
Right.
She still had authority, which is another midrash. But so he goes to the southern kingdom, then he goes out into the wilderness. All right. So he's under a broom tree, and it's kind of like Hagar. Okay. Hagar leaves. She sits under a tree, and she's just waiting to die. Right. And the angel of the Lord shows up. It says a messenger, not the angel of the Lord, but a messenger of the Lord shows up and touches him, and there's cakes baked for him. And he eats, then he falls back asleep, touches him again, says, you need to eat more because you're about to go on a long journey, and you won't make it if you don't eat again. So the second round, so my thought is he's eating manna. he's repeating what the children in the wilderness did.
You're going to go on a journey.
Yes, you're going on a journey. And after he eats for the second time, he's gone for 40 days without anything else to eat. It says in 8, and he rose up and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. So he's going to Mount Sinai.
Right.
He's going all the way back. He doesn't know what else to do but to go to Mount Sinai. Yeah. Right? All right, so, and then in 9 it says, and there he went into a cave and spent the night there, and see, the word of Yahweh came to him and said, what are you doing here, Elijah? So it's believed that that cave is the same cave, because it says the cave in the Hebrew, that it's the same cave that Moses was in when he watched the Lord pass by.
Right.
And the sages, or the Talmud, actually talks about that on the eve of the Sabbath, this cave was carved out specifically for Moses and Elijah.
Very interesting. And I wonder if Paul, because they wouldn't acknowledge Paul, but Paul goes there to Sinai. So, you know,
he may have gone into
he may
the
be
same.
like, yeah, I went in that cave too.
This may be where he went to the third heavens. You know, maybe like Moses did.
Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. What
you know, Moses went up on that mountain and was in the presence of the Lord.
Never thought about it. That's what I'm gonna have to go look and see how close those two things are.
Now, Elijah does not, but I would suggest, because it's not time. Elijah is out of line here.
Right.
So he's trying to recreate the entire, you know, the Lord takes him 40 days and 40 nights through the wilderness, signifying the 40 years that they wandered. He was fasting the whole time, just like Moses fasted. Now he's up in this cave, just like Moses did. And he says, what are you doing here? And you could read that another way. Why are you not where you're supposed to be?
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing here? And here's what he says. In verse 10, he says, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your slaughter places. They have killed your prophets with the sword, and I am left, I alone, and they seek my life to take it. Okay, so here's where he is not like Moses. Moses falls on his face and pleads for the people.
Right.
He is completely disconnecting, you know, he's just severing all ties with Israel. So in 11 he says, go out and stand on the mountain before Yahweh. This is where it gets so cool. I never saw this before this year. So here he is on Mount Sinai, right? And this is where he has the famous encounter with the Lord, where we're like, the still small voice, right? You know, which is a good thing. Yeah. But here's what it says. And see, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind tearing the mountain and breaking the rocks in pieces before Yahweh. Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, on an earthquake, Yahweh was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, and Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it came to be, when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening. What I never saw before was this entire thing happened on Mount Sinai. The earth shook, the fire came down, the wind,
Mount Sinai experience.
This Mount Sinai experience. Except in this instant, Yahweh's not there. You know why? Because he already told them in the wilderness, I will be in Jerusalem. When you establish the place where I put my name, which has already been established in Jerusalem, that's where you go to meet him. You don't go to Mount Sinai anymore to meet with the Lord. No one was doing pilgrimages to Mount Sinai. Nobody did that.
They brought, I mean, the Lord said, I'm leaving there to come and dwell with you there.
Right.
Exactly.
So where he should have gone was Jerusalem if he needed an encounter with the Lord. Yeah. But he went to Sinai, but he didn't get the experience that he was looking for, like Moses did, or like the children of Israel did the first time, because we're past that.
Right.
He should have gone to Jerusalem. Now think about us today. So many people coming out of the Christian world, they go straight to Sinai and bypass Jerusalem. They bypass Yeshua. Yeah. They don't see that Yeshua in Jerusalem is where we have to go. They bypass the cross.
Yeah.
You know, and just like Elijah, bypassing Jerusalem.
Yeah.
He goes out to the wilderness, but the Lord still meets him, but it's a still small voice, and it's not nearly as impactful as what they got in Jerusalem when the fire fell, the earth shook, you know, on the day of Pentecost.
And we had talked about this, like she said yesterday, but it made us also think, you know, if you stop at Jerusalem, you stop at the cross. it automatically brings you back to Sinai, back to where, before.
But you have to stop here.
Yes, but if you don't stop there and you just go to Sinai, that doesn't automatically bring you back.
Right.
You have, like she said, you have to go through, but
you have to go to Jerusalem.
Discussion because if you go there, you get the whole package. If you pass there, you don't necessarily get the whole package.
Right. Now, so think about those people who just go to Jerusalem and stop at the cross and never go back any further.
Right.
Does that negate their experience at the cross? No, it doesn't. They just don't get that closer, intimate relationship, that more set apart, the freedom that we experience when we go all the way back to Sinai through the cross.
Right.
You know? Okay, and in 13 it said, and it came to be when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening. I know I read that already, but I wanted to say that to say this. In Exodus 34:6, you see Moses also covering his face as the Lord passes by. So this is another way he is acting like Moses, I guess. But the thing is, Elijah's not supposed to be acting like Moses.
Right.
And in my opinion, Moses is to represent the physical experience. Elijah represents the spiritual.
Right.
That's why John could come in the spirit of Elijah.
Right.
That's why Elijah will be here before the second coming.
Spirit and truth.
Yes, he represents. Right. You got Moses, who has the representing the truth.
Torah,
Yes, the Torah. And Elijah represent the spiritual aspect. He's from the northern kingdom.
Right.
It all just fits.
Right.
And that's why he says, again, Elijah in 13, what are you doing here? Yeah. And again, Elijah says, these people, they're just so wicked. I'm so zealous for you, and yet they're just, And he says in 14, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your slaughter places, and they have killed your prophets. And the sword, and I am left, I alone, and they seek my life to take it. And Yahweh said to him, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and you shall go and anoint Hazael as sovereign over Aram. So he's giving him, I'm going to keep going here in a second, but what we see is Elijah took a petition before him.
Right.
And he says, okay, well, we're going to do something about it, and you're going to have part in that. So he's supposed to go anoint the king in sovereign over Aram. So this is the Syrian king. And anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, as sovereign over Israel. He's going to take down Jezebel and Ahab. And anoint Elisha, son of all these names I can't say, as prophet in your place. So now Elijah is being replaced.
Yeah. Hey, he got exactly what he asked for.
Yeah.
I'm tired of these people. Okay.
Yep, he sure did. All right, and in 17 he says, and it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, so the king, Jehu will kill, and whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha shall kill. And I shall leave 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. You know what I found interesting about this?
What?
Was when I continued to read, because I was like, I want to know how all this plays out. When I got to 20, so we're in 19 right now, but when I got to 2015, the Lord commands them to go into battle. All right?
Okay.
And he says, because I'm going to show you that I'm still with you. All right? And listen to what it says in 2015. It says, and he, this is Ahab. Go figure.
Okay.
And he mustered the young rulers of the provinces, and there were 232. And after them he mustered all the people, all the children of Israel, 7,000. So he's saying there's 7,000 that haven't bowed the knee.
Oh.
And now here, Ahab is able to muster up 7,000 children of Israel, and they win this battle. And I thought, isn't that interesting? That
do you think it's that 7,000? Wouldn't that be
I don't understand why it would be there.
The Lord's blessed
like
that 7,000.
Yes.
And now you.
And he'll even use a wicked king.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the 7,000 that defeat, not Ahab, because Ahab gets killed right after this.
Right.
You know? But these 7,000 were able to defeat, so they would know. Because think about it. How many people bowed down and said, Yahweh's the true God, when they saw that the Baals were not the true God? You know, but Elijah's just forgetting about all them. He is the only righteous one, right? But the Lord says right here, I've mustered up 7,000. And here's what I find interesting. all the people that were there were to worship Baal. So is this 7,000 who haven't bowed the knee or kissed Baal since they repented?
Well, I was wondering about that because here was my thought. What if they were set apart, okay? They went into hiding because obviously they're being taken care of.
Right.
Or covered. They were being held just for this point. It's like they're being held for this war, but that war is being conducted to prove to them, that 7,000.
To prove to them, not Ahab.
Right, to prove
He's
to
already
them.
proved it to Ahab.
To them that, hey, I got your back and you are with me.
Yeah. I love it. And then we see Elijah anoint Elisha. All right, so starting in 19, it says, and he went from there and found Elisha, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12th. Okay, so I always thought that he was plowing and there were 12 oxen in front of him.
Okay.
But that's not how this, in the Hebrew, this reads.
Okay.
He is one of 12 men with a pair of oxen. So there's 24.
That's why he's with the 12th.
He's with the 12th
set.
So
there's 24.
There's 24.
As in like the 24 elders. And like the 24 sets of the priests.
Yes. But it also makes me think of, see, the sages say that it is representation of the 12 tribes of Israel. And I'm like, yeah, but there's 24. So it's the physical and the spiritual working together.
Yeah.
All 12. Because here we see Elijah passing it on to Elisha. We've got 2 generations going on here. And I believe that that's where we're at right now. We have had the Elijah experience on Mount Carmel where the Lord said, choose you today who you're going to serve. Right? And now the torch is being passed to Elisha. Elisha is going to do everything Elijah did. He does everything Elijah does. He gets the double portion. And then that will be that last generation that ushers in. That's why he's with the 12th.
Right.
He's with the last one. The last.
I love that.
I know. It's just so cool. And then in 21, after he's, he knew when he had the cloak thrown on him that was, I got to follow this guy. So he goes and slaughters his oxen and uses
the ones he was working with.
The ones he was working with. Uses all the implements as wood and gives some out to the people. And that is signifying this life is done. I'm giving my entire life over to
his whole livelihood. He just gave up.
That's
Literally, he just gave up his livelihood.
So even if he wanted to, he burned that down.
Yeah, couldn't go back.
Yeah, he couldn't
Which
go
isn't
back.
That what they say
About repentance?
When you look
burn down that. That's what I was getting.
Burning down the house.
That's right. Repentance means you burn down the house so you don't return. It doesn't mean you just walk out and go a different way.
Right, and then
it
you
means
come back
you
to
literally burn down and return to the ways of the Lord.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, and then at the very end it says, then he rose up and followed Elijah and became his servant. And that's it. That's the end of the Haftarah portion.
Yeah. But not the end of the story.
Yes, I really enjoyed this one. I say that every week, I know. But
because they're all good.
I'm going to be like Mark Bell.
It's the word of
this
God.
was my favorite Haftarah portion. Right?
Right.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week with episode 104. Moving on up again.
Yeah. What?
And we never did do our little confetti. Oh, well.
We're not that technologically savvy.
We're really just not. Yes, someday the Lord's going to bless us with someone very technical who's going to want to help us. Yay!
I was going to say, who can help us.
Yes, who can and is willing. Is willing and able, like Elisha was willing and able to just leave. And you know, it says that he was very wealthy, and he gave all of that up to be a prophet, and they did not fare well. I mean, really, all that well in Israel at that time. Anyway, I digress. All right, well, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic week. Shalom!